Hello. Today, March 1st, 2021, at the Museum of the City of New York, we are marking the 1-year anniversary of the COVID pandemic arriving in New York City. In this video, we share with you some words, images, and music of New Yorkers responding to the crises of the past year. Not only the virus, but also racial injustice and economic upheaval. In just a moment, you will hear the quintessential New Yorker and jazz icon Wynton Marsalis reflect on what our city's been through, followed by a clip of him and his band performing a movement of his new piece, Democracy Suite. Next, you'll see a slideshow of images from the museum's current exhibition, New York Responds, which examines the first 6 months of the pandemic crisis through objects, images, video, and original artwork of the city taken by New Yorkers and selected by a jury of fellow New Yorkers. Finally, you'll hear from the Lieutenant Governor of New York State, Kathy Hochul. Follow us over the next 12 days as our social media channels will feature comments from jury members about some of the individual items in New York Response that they found particularly meaningful. Thank you for being here with us for this tribute to New York during this year like no other. I invite you to visit the Museum of the City of New York at 1220 Fifth Avenue or online at MCNY.org to continue your exploration and to reflect with us on all that we have lost, all that we have experienced, all that we have learned, and to explore the way forward together. Thank you.
I'm Wynton Marsalis, the Managing and Artistic Director of Jazz at Lincoln Center. I'm also a very proud New Yorker. This last year has challenged all of us, regardless of race, circumstance, gender, place, all of the isms that so often compromise our common interest and our common humanity. New York City has absolutely been tested. From the first days when our city was literally shuttered by the pandemic, all of us were put to the test. We were hit hard, but we were inspired by our heroic first responders who did an unbelievable job holding us down in the face of so much chaos and loss. All the while, we were checking out the fights against political corruption and social injustices that were playing out in our own backyard and all across our nation. New York City is the model of a resilient city, and that fortitude comes largely from its people and from our commitment to not just survive, but we know we're going to thrive. We find all kinds of creative ways to face the worst of tragedies, and we rise to the challenge by coming together and reasserting our trademark sense of community. That's also one of the reasons that the arts play such a vital role in our city. We are a city of the arts. The arts remind us of our responsibilities to one another and to our collective humanity. And you know, jazz is rooted in the blues, and New York City is jazz. The blues aesthetic inspires us to face adversity with persistent optimism. It is inescapably hopeful, and it's infused with the ability to uplift, to inspire, and ultimately to unite. Its fundamentals provide a blueprint to combat the prejudice and racial injustices that continue to haunt this nation. As jazz was one of the first aspects of American social life to be purposefully integrated, with the soulfulness, virtuosity, and swing that it has, jazz also reflects the very best principles and practices of democracy, harmonizing the interests of individual achievement with the collective good to underscore the importance of collaboration, teamwork, and good citizenship. I know, as you know, that our city will come back. That's what we do. And we will rise stronger and more unified than before. I look forward to celebrating that moment with all of you, because we're going to all be there. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, and I'm honored to join you for the Museum of the City of New York's new exhibit, New York Responds, the First 6 Months. I've been a proud supporter of this museum and commend the extraordinary leadership of Whitney Donhauser and her exceptional team. In 2017, I was a member of the honorary committee for the museum's Beyond Suffrage exhibition, where you created a brilliant collection to tell the stories of resilient New York women who changed the course of history. It's been an incredibly difficult year for New York and for the artists and cultural venues that call this city home. As the initial epicenter of the pandemic, New York City faced unprecedented challenges. Last year's tragedy, grief, and loss would have brought any other city to its knees. But New Yorkers are tough. New Yorkers are resilient. We've experienced our share of devastation, and we've overcome immense tragedy in the past and emerged even stronger. It's in our DNA as New Yorkers to persevere and to prevail. Since the pandemic began, we've adapted to this new world. For non-essential workers who have the ability to do so, we live in a new virtual world. We stay at home, we learn at home, work at home, eat at home. And while it may be viewed as unusual to tell the history of an event as it's still unfolding, and we certainly can't predict what even the next 6 months will bring, the story does need to be told now. If anything, it is a reminder of, yes, how far we fell, but now how far we've risen. And that in itself is a source of inspiration for the residents of our great city that is very needed as this crisis seems never ending. The images highlight the daily challenges, the joys and oddities that New Yorkers face, from stacks of toilet paper, signs for social distancing, shuttered buildings, and our heroic frontline workers, to the tough and loving New Yorkers who showed their true grit and grace in the face of this pandemic. What this exhibit also tells us is that there is another story from 2020 that must remain in the forefront. The long overdue reckoning that in our criminal justice system, there are in fact two Americas, one black and one white, with vastly different consequences depending on the color of your skin. Looking back through time, it's fair to say that 1968 is the only other comparable year in terms of a seismic societal shift of this magnitude. This exhibit is a reminder that just because 2020 has now slipped into history, that the movement toward true racial justice did not. So thank you for ensuring that the dual stories of 2020 are captured from the tens of thousands of sources you curated from. I want to commend all the artists for their work and thank the museum for showcasing the moments big and small that define the COVID-19 pandemic in New York City. In large part, the arts and culture that developed here have made New York the greatest city in the world. They define us, distinguish us, and inspire us. From unique cultural attractions like the City of the Museum of New York, Broadway theater, world-class musicians, photographers, writers, and performers, New York City is home to the best of the best. I'm proud that New York will be launching pop-up performances and festivals to showcase the return of the arts and culture scene. Lastly, never forget our state motto. Excelsior means ever upward. This exhibit, built on the story of New Yorkers, our resiliency and our toughness, propels us ever upward. You've created an important contribution to this contemporaneous telling of a story that needs to be told. I can't wait to see this exhibit in person. Thank you.